Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. In this video, I'm going to talk about conducting scientific research as a student, and I'm going to focus on the scientific problem. And my presentation will have the following outline. First, I'm going to talk about the main purpose of research in general. Then I'm going to talk about global problems. Then I'll also talk about local problems. Then I'll summarize the presentation and bring the presentation to an end. So let's get started. Generally, research is done to help solve problems confronting humanity in the different aspects of our lives. These problems confronting humanity at the different aspects of our lives may be problems at a global scale or problems at a local scale, all depending on how these problems affect the world. Currently, there are various problems facing human development, and these problems are in various sectors such as health, agriculture, transportation, housing. So for health, for instance, there are so many different diseases, that keep cropping up from time to time, which need solution, which need preventive measures. We need even equipment for testing. Agriculture, there are so many different techniques which needs to be developed to help us improve upon the yield of crops and all that. Transportation. In relation to transportation, there's a need for a lot more efficient means of moving around, people, or moving around goods within the country, also from country to country, without spending too much time. Housing also, there's a need for different kinds of housing, especially housing that can actually adapt to the current climate change that we are actually witnessing. Housing which has enough ventilation, or which has features in such a way that it helps in efficient use of energy and efficient use of resources. So these are various challenges that actually help face human development, basically, and these problems need solution to them, basically. And scientific research makes it possible to provide solutions for all these problems confronting humanity. Without scientific research, the kind of development that we currently witness, in the world would not have been possible. And generally, human development would have come to a standstill, basically. So let's look at the problems, and let's look at global problems. Global problems basically are problems that affect the world at a large scale. And typical examples of global problems include diseases, extreme weather events, air pollution, transportation, etc. And these kinds of problems are global problems because of the fact that regardless of where they originate, they have effects, that can actually destroy multiple economies, or that can destroy multiple countries across the world at a time. So generally, because global problems, have effects, that can actually move at a large scale, global problems generate lots of scientific interests, and their solutions or research which targets global problems are more likely to attract external sources of funding or international sources of funding, which are sources of funding which may not necessarily come from your own pocket, or which may not necessarily come from your country's government or whatever it is, but other people, even outside your country, at a global level, may be interested in even supporting such research because of the scale at which the problem affects the world. And as a research student, it is important that once you begin to embark on your research, you align your research, with a global problem, especially in a situation where you are not able to provide funds and resources personally, to carry out the research. Because once your research is targeted at a global problem, there are so many donor agencies and international organizations which have funds available, and they are ready to give out these funds to people who are actually solving problems, that have impact at a global scale. So let's look at local problems. Local problems are problems that affect a small part of the world or a small locality or some small part of some institution or some company or whatever it is. And this small locality could be the immediate environment, a small region, a country or a company or some institution. And typical examples of local problems may include things such as disease control, or let's say malaria control, flooding, for instance, let's say waste management of a company or whatever it is. Let's say noise being generated in some small part, of some community. So these kinds of problems, are local problems because they affect small portions or small areas within the globe, and their effects may not necessarily travel on a large scale as compared to global problems. So, for instance, if you take something like malaria control, for instance, malaria may only affect a small locality or some part of or one particular country or some small portion of the world. Flooding, for instance, may be related to some community, basically. Waste management may be something related to, let's say, treatment of the waste of some institution or some company or whatever it is. So it goes on. And these problems act, at a small scale, and because of that, they are local problems. And because local problems affect only a small part of the world, they do not generate huge scientific interest like what the global problems actually generate. And because of this, research students who set out to tackle local problems typically end up funding these kinds of research personally themselves, or they could also get support from the local government in the area where they are solving the problem, or from some private investors. Like if it's a problem affecting, let's say, a company, the company may be interested in spending some resources to get a problem fixed, through research. So this is it. So in summary, scientific research basically is done to help solve the various problems confronting humanity, so we can develop and move forward. And the problems are usually related to the various aspects of human life, such as health, agriculture, education, transportation, etc. And generally, these problems can be solved, at two main levels, and the first level is at a global level, and the second level is at a local level. So basically, if the problem is a problem that has a large scale effect across the globe, then that is a global problem. And then if the problem has a smaller scale effect, in some small area or in some small locality within the world, then that problem is a local problem. And for a research student, by targeting global problems, your solutions are more likely to make global scale impacts. The solutions are more likely to make impact that move beyond the country where you live in. And as a research student, it is important that once you begin to embark on your research, you try to align your research with a global problem so that you can actually make an impact across the world, And one of the benefits of targeting global problems is that once your research targets a global problem or seeks to provide solution to a global problem, you are more likely to get funding and logistical support by external actors, by external institutions, external organizations, or even companies, can come in and support your research so that you can get all the resources you need, regardless of how expensive they are, and just carry through with your research. So this brings me to the end of this presentation. Thank you so much for making the time to watch.